About a year and a half ago, I realized that my 2012 MacBook Pro wasn't cutting it for my work anymore. I realized that Macs were really expensive, and I had been using this, 8-year-old machine without knowing just how much Macs were because it was a gift. And so I started to figure out, like how much do I need to spend in order to upgrade my Mac. And the prospects a couple of years ago were not great. I would have to upgrade thousands and thousands of dollars just to get from my $300 2012 Mac Pro to where I needed to be, or MacBook Pro to where I needed to be. And so I was like, oh man, like how do I figure that out? After doing some research, I decided to build a Hackintosh, and I used my Hackintosh for about a year, and maybe one day I'll do a video on that because it was really great. I switched over to Windows a couple months ago, but I had always dreamed of putting my Hackintosh inside an old Mac Pro case because I love the way the old cheese graters looked, even more so than I like the way the new cheese graters look. And so I was like, oh man, what if I gutted an old Mac and put my Hackintosh in there? That'd be so cool. I went to a surplus sale at my local college, right? And I picked up a 2008 Mac Pro that looks a lot like this. And I thought to myself, all right, this is what I'm gonna gut. So I bought the computer for $20. I got an Apple keyboard, an Apple mouse, power cords, and then the computer. And I sold the mouse and keyboard for $15. And then I sold the insides of the computer for $20. So I actually made $15 on the actual purchase itself, and I still have an extra power cord. The point is I wanted to gut this thing and create or put a Hackintosh in there. Well, I've been putting it off for months and months now, and it's been almost a year, and now I'm using Windows, but I still really love the case. And so I thought I'd finally do it. I'm finally gonna do this project and do it. And so I started to remove all the insides, and I ran into a problem. You actually can't remove the locking mechanism separately from everything else. And so there's this plate that the power supply sits on, and then the CD drives sit on as well in the 2008 Mac Pro. And that's a little bit different than the G5, the Power Mac G5 that they released in 2003 or 2004 or whenever it was. I was trying to figure out how can I hollow this thing out because it's not large enough to fit a standard ATX motherboard in there. How do I hollow this thing out while keeping the locking mechanism in place? Because I really wanted to keep the locking mechanism in place, but I couldn't figure it out. And so I was with my brother-in-law, and we were just tearing this thing apart. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And I took my saw and I just cut the locking mechanism out. And so now I'm going to need to figure out a way to reassemble this thing and modify this case so I can put a PC in it. But I'm going to show you the damage I did because I destroyed an old Mac Pro from 2008. I just demolished the thing so I could put a Windows PC in there, and I want to show you what it looks like. So move that aside. My toddler got involved, and now there's a bunch of sticky stuff on there. All right, this is a mess and just awful. The number one bummer, the thing that I'm really put out about, is that you can kind of see it here. Let me see if I can focus on it. But this part right here connected to this part over here, and that had a crossbar that was the locking mechanism, which is why this door wasn't clipped on. It was just leaning up against it. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to solve that problem. But the locking mechanism was attached to this thing. Now I have seen some people with the Power Mac G5, this is a 2008 Mac Pro model, but with the Power Mac G5, I've seen them be able to remove what is surrounding the locking mechanism and remove the plates so they can keep the locking mechanism intact. But that certainly did not work out for me. Locking mechanism. Locking mechanism was sandwiched between those two pieces. This was on the bottom here, and then this one in back was on top, and it was bolted to the back here, and it was bolted in front, and then the locking mechanism was sandwiched between those, and I couldn't get just one of these pieces off to unhook the locking mechanism. And so I was left with I just freaking sawed that off, and it just makes me so sad. These were just miscellaneous pieces that were around. This is the vent cover. I've bent it. It's ugly now. There's just so much metal. I am going to need to recycle this and figure out how to do that. So I'm not 100% sure. These were the hard drive bays. Really sad to see those go, but it is what it is. In order to fit a full-size ATX motherboard in here, I had to remove this plate that was right there. So let's see. I do want to keep this, because that goes with these things, which are the front CD drive covers, and so I want to keep those, not because I have any intention of using a CD-ROM, but because I think they look nice aesthetically. So I'm going to keep that instead of having these holes right here. Those aren't useful at all. So I'm going to keep those around. Let's see, there were way too many screws. All of these along here, those along there, bunch of screws all up in here. Like, had nothing to do with keeping things in place, and it got to the point that I'm pretty sure it was just an aesthetic thing. Another CD drive there, or a hard drive bay there. And then this thing was kind of annoying. I'm actually bummed that this came out, because this was sitting as a cover there. I might be able to put it back sometime, but this is where I put in all of my expansion cards and things like that. And so I'm bummed that this came out, because it protected this area here. Now it's still intact, and this is actually a really nifty expansion slot. But yeah, I was kind of bummed that came out. But we'll be able to make do without it. Other CD cover there. And then this went to the locking mechanism. I don't think I'm going to keep this. I think I might just remove what was going on with the locking mechanism here and maybe just super glue it shut, because it's useless at this point. So the next steps for this project are going to be sanding this down and making the interior very clean. And then I'm gonna cut out here, because this isn't an I/O shield. That's not going to work for a normal ATX motherboard, so I'm going to need to cut out the slot there. So I'll probably get a donor board or something like that to mark and cut it, and then I'll glue the standoffs in place with the JB Weld, and make it so I can use these expansion slots and have the cover there, and I'll find a way to route this. But the next area is to clear everything out, make sure it's clean, then paint it after I cut the expansion or the I/O shield right there. So that's the plan for this thing. But yeah, if I was just totally wrong, and there is in fact a way to disassemble a 2008 Mac Pro case, I would love for somebody to tell me that I was awful, because I'd love to pick one of these up and do it right the next time. But for now, I'm just left with this broken thing. Well, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at what the inside of my Mac Pro case from 2008 looks like. I've got my work cut out for me. I'm not a PC modder in any way, shape, or form. I'm actually very novice to building PCs. I like computers. I like a lot of things technology-wise, but I'm not very versed in how to build PCs and stuff like that, and certainly not how to do computer mods. So I've got my work cut out for me, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'll keep you updated as time goes on. But if you can figure out a way to remove the plate that the CD drives and the power supply go on in an old Mac Pro, feel free to shoot that my way. I would love to be told I'm wrong, and figure out a way to do that properly. So maybe I can do it on a future build or something like that. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you like this content, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot. And stay tuned for the next video.